Our next speaker is from ICANN. Before he comes out to stage, we're going to run a small video to give you a sense of what's happening at ICANN and the big picture. The presentation is entitled, "Shape the Future of the Internet, Your Business Depends on It." Let's have a look at what ICANN are doing, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Göran Marby, the CEO of ICANN, to come and join me on stage. So let's run the video, please.
With the U.S. no longer at the center of managing the global domain name system, ICANN plays a new role in managing key parts of the Internet. As ICANN's new CEO, our next presenter is leading this effort to build consensus on how the Internet should run. And he wants your input and your help to shape what happens next.
We replace the supervision of the US government to the community supervision that increases accountability and have more checks and balances. You are now fully in charge.
Please give a big, warm WHD.global welcome for Mr. Göran Marby, the CEO of ICANN. Göran, please join us.
Good morning. Nice to be here. Before I came here, my son sent me a video when someone here made a commercial about me and ICANN. Whoever did that video, I'm very, very happy for it, because it actually made me look cool in the eyes of my son, who is 16, and I'm never cool in the eyes of my son ever, so thank you very much for that. Yeah, and also to some of my friends who actually spread it around on the internet. Anyway, I'm here today to talk about ICANN. I'm also going to share a little bit about the trends we see and what we're doing, and the assumption is that after that you're going to be interested of actually working with ICANN. So I will start with a question. Is any of you sitting in this room have anything to do with making revenues on internet? Anyone? No? No one? Should I walk away again? Okay. Because if you are, you should actually listen to what I have to talk about. How many of you have ever been to an ICANN meeting? Oh yeah, this is going to help. Do you want me to explain what ICANN actually is? As a starter. Okay, you know this thing called internet? There's a technical layer to it, and that is basically what I call a machine. Many people seem to think that internet is a kind of a national resource. At least my kids think so. Every time they plug in, they're on internet. What many people don't think about is that internet actually consists of different parts. ICANN is one of those parts. And we say we're together with our partners in the numbers, the protocols, and the domain names. ICANN handles the domain names. You can see us as a stock exchange. We provide the opportunity for you to have a market. That's what we do. And what ICANN does, and what people coming to ICANN do, is to set the rules for that market. Are you getting interested now? The thing with ICANN is, it's a fairly unique model, because no one in the world have ever invented anything like ICANN before. We are the same as the internet, in that sense that we've grown up together with the internet and provide a service to the internet. ICANN is a US non-profitable organization. We are run by you if you participate within ICANN. But remember that we are, based on what you do, you can set the policies for us going forward. So if you have any interest of making money on what happens on the internet, you should probably be aware of that and participate in what we do. So we do spend a lot of time looking into the future and trying to understand where we think that the internet is actually going to go. And the reason we do that is not because we want to look at it from a business perspective. We are actually doing this because we happen to think internet is important. So what we see right now is a fairly big trend. Together with our technical partners, we are the ones who provide the ability for one single network that today has 3.7 billion users. And as I many times say, I don't have a clue how they calculate them. Actually, I don't. But people tell me it's now 3.7 billion. A couple of months ago, it was 3.6, and I expect it's going to be more in a couple of weeks. The thing with that is that I happen to think that the first 3.7 billion users were the easy ones. They live in the West world, they live a lot in Europe, they live to part of Asia, but also in the US. They are urban people with a lot of money. They are the elite of any society that was the first ones that came on board to internet. The next billion users will be different. First of all, they're going to be mobile. For many reasons. One of them, the cost of the access to build the connectivity, that's going to be important. The mobile actually changes things, because when a mobile user is using internet differently from one who's used on a PC on a fixed line. Someone agreed? I actually think so. But there is something else as well. People are very smart. When there have been studies conducted about how do people get access to internet or why they do it, people are fairly smart. So a couple of years ago, there was a study done in Europe where we looked upon how does people look at internet as a tool. And it turns out, especially in the Nordic countries, and I'm from Sweden, you can hear that in my Swedish dialect, is that people in Sweden seem to think that internet is something that you're always on. If you're disconnected from internet, then you're off life. You really feel, I don't know, have you heard about this thing that some bans on using PCs on flights, going back and forth from the US? A lot of my people working for me, and we have people in 34 countries today, are really scared about sitting 10 hours on a flight without access to their PCs and internet. A lot of people today, in many countries, think that you always have to be online. If you go further south into new developed countries, people go online to do something and offline, again, where they don't need to do something. And that is a small change, but it's a very important one. And the reason why that's important is because people will only use internet if they feel they got something for it. And when you go out to peripheries of new internet users, that's even more important. And what are they looking for? They're not looking for always going on social media. They're looking for local content. They're looking for local storage. They're looking for local things. They want to be accessed to their local news shows, their local newspapers, their local municipalities, their local banks, and their local friends. Because internet, as you know, are two things. It's a global thing, but also a very local thing. So that's why, for instance, I can spend so much time talking about what we call IDNs, to make it possible to have local scripts, to make it possible to be as local as possible. So now we see a change of the traffic patterns. We see that countries or regions that comes on board right now, when they actually get on board, most of the traffic goes abroad, but now it moves back into the countries, and it becomes local. For anyone in hosting or traffic patterns or anything else, that's an interesting thing, because then we could foresee more uses of CDNs, because they have the same demands of quality as everybody else. The latency is going to be important, and they're going to use mobile phones. Another thing with using mobile, has anyone heard about 5G? Seems to be the next big thing. And I'm being a regulator, and people have been talking about it for a couple of years. There's a lot of things that's going to happen when we enter the next version of mobile. One of them, which is handled by one of our partners, that's the IP version 6. IP version 6 is very much the cry wolf. We talked about it for such a long time that nobody really cares. But if you look into the specifications of IP version 6 of the next generation of mobile, you could see that they're going to more and more use IP version 6 in their cloud, which means that anyone who's in this business have to now start building IP version 6 enabled services from start to end. And that's also going to change a part of the business. We also see other things. One of them is about, today you have one IP address per web page. What we now see in more and more is that you're actually changing it. So what you're doing is to have several web pages per IP address. And that's another way of using less IP addresses, but it also changes the whole way you store things going forward. And just one more thing. Has anyone heard what we're going to do in October? No. Maybe you should know. Because we are doing a small experiment. And this small experiment is that we're actually going to upgrade what we call the DNSSEC. Do you know what DNSSEC is? Anyone? Please say yes. Yes. Thank you. I went to the party with the concert yesterday, and I realized to speak before 1 o'clock in any event here is a hard thing to do, because you usually seem to have a lot of fun in the evenings, don't you? So if I'm invited back again, I'm going to demand to do this speech about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when you probably have woken up again. It's nice to be up here to feel that you're actually listening to what I'm saying. Anyway, so in October, we're going to do a small thing. And this has never been done before, and my CTO, David Conrad, is not scared at all. He just thinks he's going to... We're going to upgrade the DNSSEC with a new password. We don't think it's going to be a big problem, but anyone here who has an operator who does anything around this should make sure that it actually happens, because otherwise your users will be locked out of internet. So please go in, and we actually have test sites for it now, so you can go in and check if your system is working with a different password going into the DNSSEC. It's never been done before, but we have to upgrade the security of the DNSSEC to make sure that the middleman attacks of there doesn't happen going forward. So these are some of the things that we're seeing right now. One comment, going back a little bit, in the commercial, you saw that just before, 1st of October last year, something happened with ICANN. Until the 1st of October last year, ICANN was under the supervision of the US government. And what happened with the 1st of October was that we are not under that supervision anymore. Before that, we had a reason to, every time we did an update of the ICANN system, we had to check that with the US government. And after that, there was a lot of people who actually thought that we handed over internet over to certain individual countries or to the UN system. There was also, to some surprise, that the internet actually works the 1st of October last year. Anyone in the US probably are well aware about this discussion. It was interesting for me, being Swedish, to come into that discussion fairly late. But it shows the importance, because what we actually did was to move the supervision of ICANN over to the ICANN community. And the ICANN community could be anyone. So coming back to my first question, if you're actually interested or making money on doing anything that's related to internet, you should probably be interested in doing something together with ICANN. The way we do that is, we have different ways. Three times a year we have an ICANN meeting. We just had one in Copenhagen with about 2,000 people attending. There are people from any part of the industry, plus governments, academia, civil society comes together and actually makes the rules for the stock exchange, which is ICANN. Which means that you may like what we do, or you may don't like what we do, or just accept what we do. But you actually, by coming there, participating, is a potential for you to change your own future when it comes to business models on the internet. And there's a lot of new things that's going to happen, especially when it comes to localization, which we think is going to be very, very important. Also when it comes to cybersecurity. Many of those things is now talked about in the ICANN framework. So if you would like to be a part, you're welcome to go there. With that, I say thank you very much, and I open up for any questions, so we have kind of interaction instead of just me talking. And I want to say I didn't use any PowerPoints at all.